Okay, so here we go. Kidashti espiti. I was Mekadesh, my daughter. I was Makabel Kiddushin for her. Kidashtia v'geirashtia kishiktana. I was Makabel Kiddushin for her when she was a Ktana. And then I was Makabel Aget. So now my daughter is Migureshes. Varei Kitana, when he's saying it, he's a Ktana. She's a Ktana. The relevance of that is that right now, if he wanted, he could still be Makabel Kiddushin for her and be Megarisher. So it's Biyoda. Nemon, he's Nemon, and she's considered a Gerusha, and therefore she would be usher to marry a Kohen. But important to point out, if he was a Kohen, then his daughter is allowed to eat Truma. But she's a Gerusha, so she may not marry a Kohen. What about Kidashtia v'gerishtia? He had the same comment, except Varehi Gedola. But right now she's a Gedola. So he couldn't make that happen now if he would have wanted to. I thank you so much. Einoy Naman, there he's not. So that's the second case. The third case is, he said Nishbis. She was captured by Goyim. Rahman Litzlan now is the, I shouldn't even say that the Lublin strikes again. But Rahman Litzlan, she was captured. I rescued her, I redeemed her. The father's not Naman to make her Asr Lakun. And of course, Gemara will explain. The reason why she would be Asr Lakuna is because she would be a Zaina. Zok the Helig Gemara. Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seif. Vasab is in the Reisha, where she's a Ktana now, the fathers believe. But in both cases of the Seifa, Sai when she's a Gdoila now, when he's saying his testimony, or Lagabi Nishbis, the father is not believed. Zok Gemara, the father in the Reisha, the fathers believe is Reisha Biyadeh. As Rashi says, Ba'idena Ktana, Biyadeh Lakacha La'acher, he could still marry her off again, the Lachser Ulakabel get Heman, and then receive a get from the husband, should the husband want to divorce her. Therefore he's believed the Malay L'Shaker, Ibai Pasala. Why would he lie if he wants her to be Psul L'Kuna? He could make her Psul L'Kuna by marrying her off. But Seifa, in the cases of the Seifa, for instance, L'Kacha Mishagadla, he can't be Mekadasher, which is a G'dayla, and he couldn't give her over to captors, so therefore, Seifa Lav B'Yodei, that's why she's not. Freik the Gemara, in the Reisha, where we say she's Psul Kahuna, but she's still allowed to eat Truma. Why? Because it's B'Yodei to marry her off. It's also B'Yodei to passel her from Truma. V'loi, v'arei, B'Yodei L'Asiyah L'Chalal. He could marry her off to a Chalal. What is the definition of a Chalal? Zok Rashi, L'Noiled Me'almana L'Kohen Gadol. What happens if an almana marries a Kohen Gadol? That's an illegal marriage. What if they have children from that union? That child becomes a Chalal. So Freik the Gemara, he could have married her off to a Chalal, and now not only would she be divorced and she can't marry a Kohen, but even if she was a Kohenes herself, for instance, he was a Kohen, she would no longer be allowed to eat Truma because she will have the status of a Chalala. That's not shver, because maybe our Mishnah holds like Rabbi Dostoy ben Yehuda, the Amar ben Nois Yisrael mikvah tahira lechalal. If he married her off to a chalal, she would still be able to eat truma. It wouldn't passel her. And not only that, her children would be kosher. As Rabbi Dostoy ben Yehuda said, let's see Rashi, Murdik Achidish, Svir le Latan Didam, the Amar lekamam, ben Nois Yisrael mikvah tahira lechalal. A Jewish girl is like a mikvah tahira to be mitar chalalim. The bas chalal zocher, if you had a chalal, how was this chalal made? Maybe like the case we just discussed, that an almana married a kohen gadol, and they had a son. This son is now a chalal. So the halach is sheira the bas chalal zocher cher lekun. So you have this man who was born out of an illegal union. His mother was an almana who married a kohen gadol, and then this man married a regular Jewish woman who he's allowed to marry, and they had a child. that child may marry a kohen. So they purge the psul of halal from themselves. So the bas halal zocher, the son of a halal zocher, ksher lekahuna. Why? Sheishdoi, his wife, tihara ezaron. She purified the children so the halal, the psul of halal, does not go through. It gets cut off. So now that's what Rabbi Stoy said. Rabbi Stoy never talked about her marrying him. Rabbi Stoy just said that if he marries a Bas Yisrael or a regular Jewish girl, the children are no longer halal. Zokt Rashi, and here's the chiddush that's stretched further here. V'chivin the bita kshera, since his daughter is kosher, almanasa kshera as well. If she can be machsher her children, obviously she must become kosher herself, but she remains kosher herself. The chol shat the noise bita, we have a rule that we're going to soon learn at the end of Masechta. Any person that you're allowed to marry his daughter, you're also allowed to marry his alman. So therefore, since a kohen is allowed to marry the daughter of this chalal who married a Bas Yisrael, so too a kohen could marry the almana of a chalal that married a Bas Yisrael. So therefore, it's not biyad the father to passel her from kahuna, because even if he married her off to this son of the chalal, it would not passel her. Frekt Rashi, which I already incorporated into how I explained the Gemara, but Frekt Rashi, I don't understand. Why do we need, what's the Gemara itching for? Why does the Gemara want to suggest that biyadi lasi l'chalal? Is it not good enough where the Mishnah said that it's biyadi just to marry her off and accept her divorce, and now she's also to a kohen? Hari biyadi l'pastel b'kedushin v'gerushin. So why is the Gemara itching to say it's biyadi lasi l'chalal? Zokt Rashi, hasa mikahuna pasala. Once she's a gerusha, she may no longer marry a kohen. But if she's a daughter of a kohen, she's allowed to eat truma. So truma like pasala. Just because she's divorced, that doesn't mean she may no longer eat truma in bas koheni. Aval nishbis. But if she was captured, then psula afbina truma. So we want to say that he should even be nema to say nishbis and pasal his daughter from truma, migoi, that he could have married her off to a chalal who was the product of a marriage of an almana l'kohen gadol. So to Gemara, that wouldn't work because that would not pasal her at all. She would still be able to eat truma. Fact to Gemara, he can marry her off to a mamzer. And if she marries a mamzer, then she'll be also to eat truma. The halach is, if you try marrying a woman where there's a chi of kares, everybody agrees your Kiddushin won't even be toifus. So if he tried to marry his daughter off to a chi of kares, the Kiddushin won't be toifus, so she won't become puzzle because the marriage never happened. But what if you try marrying her off to someone who you're only prohibited to marry because of a lav? There, according to the Chachamim, according to Rabbi Paskin, Kiddushin will be toifus. It's also to marry a mamzer, or it's also for a woman to marry a mamzer, but Kiddushin will be toifus. So maybe he can marry after a mamzer. Zok to Gemara, no. Zok to Gemara, Rabbi Kiva Damar in Kiddushin toifus b'chai v'lav. Rabbi Kiva is a chiddush. Rabbi Kiva says even the chai v'lav, even if it's not a chai v'krisos, like an isur to marry a mamzer, even that the Kiddushin won't be chal. So our mission is going according to Rabbi Kiva, and therefore it was not biyadoi to passel her from truma by marrying her off to a mamzer. Correct Gemara, even according to Rabbi Kiva, harei biyadoi la'asiya almana l'kohen gadol. So you might ask me, almana l'kohen gadol is the same lav, and doesn't Rabbi Kiva say in Kiddushin toifus b'chai v'lav? So tomorrow Rabbi Tzimoy learned in Rabbi Kiva, although in Kiddushin toifus b'chai v'lav there was one exception to that rule. The lav of almana l'kohen gadol, even Rabbi Kiva held Kiddushin would be toifus. Where did we get that from? Because Rabbi Shimoy taught us. The Tanya Rabbi Shimoy Omer, Mina koil oiser Rabbi Kiva mamzer. Rabbi Kiva held that ain't Kiddushin toifus even b'chai v'lav, and by definition, if Kiddushin is not toifus and there's a union which produces a child that produces a mamzer, the only chai v'lav which Rabbi Kiva said did not produce a mamzer, and therefore by definition Kiddushin would be toifus, because the Torah told us specifically that an alman l'kohen gadol, their child is not a mamzer. So Amar Torah lo yikach v'lo yichala. It says almana ugusha v'chalal zayin el lo yikach. That is the lav, and the next pasuk says what the impact of such a union is, and the next pasuk says v'lo yichala zaray ba'am. So we learn chilul v'moisa. This particular chayv lavin is different than every other chayv lavin, according to Rabbi Kiva, and it only makes the child a halal, but ve'ein oitza mamzer. So therefore, it would not have been an option for him to passel his children from Truma to passel his daughter from Truma by marrying her off as an almana l'kohen. Zog to Gemara. No, this is a kasha. Freik the Gemara. Why don't you say he married her off as an almana l'kohen gadol? He could have done that, and therefore he should be believed to passel her from eating Truma. Zog to Gemara, because our mission is not whole like Psimoi. There was actually a machlokes how to understand Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Simoi understood Rabbi Kiva that the Kiddushin from an almana l'kohen gadol will be typhus, and the child will not be a mamzer. And according to Rabbi Simoi, you'll have a kasha. Why don't we say it was biyadi to passel his daughter from eating truma? But we are like Rabbi Yeshevav's opinion in Rabbi Kiva, and there's actually two pshatim in Rabbi Yeshevav's opinion in Rabbi Kiva. So let's see what Rabbi Yeshevav said. Rabbi Yeshevav said, let's go scream and gang up and protest against Al Akiva ben Yosef. Why? Why don't we like him? Any woman who she's not allowed to marry a Yisrael, Havlad Mamzer, that'll make the Vlad into a Mamzer. So what we're trying to suggest is that he argues on Rab Simoi, and he holds that even Alman l'kohen gadol, the Vlad's a Mamzer, and therefore in Kiddushin Toifsin. So it eliminates that option. It's not biyadai for him to marry off his daughter as an almana l'kohen gadol because the Kiddushin would not have been Toifs. Zok to Gemara, hanicha l'Rabbi Yeshevav idam ila tamed nafshei shapir. So what the Gemara is bringing up now is chayve lavin. According to Rabbi Kiva, we've already taken off the table. Even the chayve lavin of almana l'kohen gadol, because that makes the vlad a mamzer, and he could never have married his daughter off as an almana l'kohen gadol because chayve lavin, the Kiddushin wouldn't be typhus. But what about chayve asay? A mitzri and an adoimi who's not allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, it says in the pasuk, Rashi is going to quote that they're only also machmas achayve asay. A mitzvah in Adoimi, it says, Dar Shlishi Yabilam Mekal. It's a mitzvah to say that they're not supposed to marry into Klal Yisrael, but there's no mitzvah loisa. So what would Rabbi Kiva hold about a mitzvah loisa, about a mitzvah to say? If a woman is prohibited to marry a Yisrael because of an Israel say not a loisa, would Rabbi Kiva agree that their Kiddushin is typhus or not? It all depends on how you understand Rabbi Shevav. Hanichal Rabbi Shevav eat l'taimei dinafshei. When Rabbi Shevav commented to argue on Rabbi Simoi, what did he say? Rabbi Shevav said, let's go scream at Akiva ben Yosef because he holds any type of union that's prohibited produces a mamzer. Well, if you hear him say that, if you hear someone say, Rabbi Akiva holds any illegal union produces a mamzer, would you logically say that that also includes a union that's prohibited by SA? Of course, any illegal union. So if he was just saying that as a standalone statement, the way it would be understood is that every illegal union produces a mamzer, including a Isser SA. So if he was just saying his own statement, that according to Rabbi Kiva, every single illegal union produces a mamzer, including a chayve SA, then it also eliminates a kasha in our Mishnah. What if he could marry her after a chayve say? That would also possibly be meaning true. But according to Rabbi Kiva, that wouldn't be allowed. If Rabbi Yeshevav didn't make a standalone statement, when Rabbi Yeshevav said, he was referring to what Rabbi Simoi said. You, Rabbi Simoi, said that Rabbi Kiva has a carve out for the loisa of alman l'kohen gadol. Let's scream at him because he's answering everything. He just meant to argue on Rab Shimoi, and he only meant to outlaw and to say that according to Rabbi Kiva, Kiddushin wouldn't be toifus by the man l'kohen gadol. But maybe he also agrees that by an Isser Asay, the Kiddushin would be toifus according to Rabbi Kiva. So then, and even Rabbi Sheva agrees that a Chayv Asay Kiddushin would be toifus according to Rabbi Kiva. So we're back to the same kasha. It was biyad of the father to passel his daughter from eating truma because Rabbi Yodi la'asiyah l'chayv asay. So we have a little bit of a problem. The way we understood the Mishnah, why he's believed to passel his ketana from marrying a kohen and not a gedolah from marrying a kohen is because it's not biyada. But that explanation of the Mishnah is blowing up in our faces because if it's all about biyada, then he should also be believed to passel his daughter from eating truma. So we have to abort that logic. Amar Abashi v'tizbra. If you think about it, there's greater problems. Because what do you mean it's biyadoi? He's a daughter ketana. You tell me it's biyadoi to passel her from marrying a kohen because he could marry her off and then he could accept her get? That's not called biyadoi. Reishim mishum de biyadayu. Nehi de biyadoi lakacha. Okay, maybe you could say it's biyadoi for him to be mekabel kedushin for her. But biyadoi lagarsha. What if her husband doesn't want to divorce her? It's not in his control to get his daughter a divorce. And I'll tell you something else, Dr. Gemara. He can't even marry her off because he has to find somebody who wants to marry her. So it's not biyadoi to passel his daughter from marrying a kohen because he can't even marry her. It's not even biyadoi to marry her off. So therefore, that whole svara just blew up. So we're back to the drawing board, back to square one. Why was he believed in the Reisha? And why was he not believed in the Seifa? Why is he believed about a daughter Tana to say that she was married off and divorced? And why is he not believed to say the same thing about a Gdoila? Nor is he believed to say even a Tana was captured. Ela Amar Abashi, it's all like Zeres HaKosov. Reisha Rachmana Hemne. In the Reisha, when she's a Tana, there's a special Ne'emonis that the Torah dictates is given to the father, Kirafuna, like Rav Huna that we just learned. Tomar Rav Huna Amarav B'nayin La'av Shenemon Lesser Spita Imin HaTorah. How do you know that a father has an Ne'emonis to outlaw his daughter, to answer his daughter to marry a kohen? Shenemar es biti nasati lishazeh. This is in the parsha of Moichi Shemra, but the father declares, I married my daughter off. And we accept his declaration that he married his daughter off. But we have to be daik in the nuances of this pasuk. It's biti nasati la'ish. So therefore, la'ish asra. He has the ability to say that his daughter had been married, and therefore he can ask her. But it's hazeh, there's a meal. He can't ask her any time, only the ish hazeh, hazeh hetira bin asun. So Zakt Gemara, Leish Asra, hazeh hetira. So you see, sometimes he's believed, and sometimes he's not believed. So bin asun hemne rachman Allah. To say that he married her off, he is nemenes, but b'shvuya. But if to say that she's captured, loy hemnei. So ultimately, the reason why the father is believed is because there's a special Gzeres HaKosov that is believed to say that he married her off. But that Gzeres HaKosov only applies to saying that he married her off, not to saying that that she was captured. It's a Gzeres HaKosov. It's a Gzeres HaKosov. But how do you know when she's a Gdoili, he's not believed? So let's look at Rashi. Leish Asra. I'm like Rashi right before the Mishnah toward the bottom. Leish Asra ala koil. She'ein anu yoidin lemi. He can ask her to everybody by saying he married her off. V'chiyamar hazeh hitir lazeh. When he said hazeh, so when he said that, speaking of ish, he's not meant to ask her to everybody. He's also not meant to say hazeh that I married off to Pliny, and therefore she's mutter to Pliny also to everybody else. L'nisun hemnei im naira im tana. If she's a naira or a tana. Avo bebogris loy mishdoi kro. This pasuk isn't even discussing a gedola. The naraksiv in the pasuk that talks about Moshe Shemra, it says Hanaira. V'amar avi Hanaira elazakanim as biti nisati lishaseh. Only somebody who can marry his daughter off. So Pshat on the Mishnah is very simple. If she's a Kana or a Naira, the Torah says he has an amonis of a spiti nisati lishaseh. If she's a Gdoila, he doesn't have that amonis. If he's a Shvuya, you don't find anywhere that the Torah believes someone to say that his daughter was a Shvuya. So it's all the Gzeres HaKosov.
Yosy, there's some fundamental information that I don't think I have. Why are we questioning his integrity? Why should we question whether he's believed or not? Why shouldn't we believe him in the first place?
Because a woman who has a cheskes kashrus, one aid alone can take that cheskes kashrus away. She was born with a cheskes kashrus that she's mutter l'kahuna. So why should he believe to take that cheskes kashrus away from her?
Why aren't we assuming that he's doing what he thinks is best for his daughter? Why would we think that he would take away her cheskes kashrus?
Because normally one aid is not believed. And especially a karev is normally not believed. Logically, you're saying, why would a father do this? And that's a good argument.
But he has the power. We're giving him the power to marry off his daughter.
Well, what if a father came along
we're not trusting
said,
him?
My daughter was Machal Shabbos. Would you kill her based on that? He's not them. It's simple. Not the aid of a karev, the aid of a father, especially if there's no two aidim.
Parents don't do that. Parents don't put their children in a makam where they could be chayiv misa.
So that's a whole different story. That's the famous shtickle from Rav Gedal Yeshur. It's brought down that there never was a ben Sayer Umayr. And Rav Gedal Yeshur Zatzal explains why. Because the parents have to schlep their kid to the bezdin and tell them B'nai Nuzeh Sayer Umayr, they're bringing him to his death. Which crazy cuckoo parent is going to take their children to get him killed? The Teretz is only parents who have such clarity of vision to understand that this is really what's best for the child to show. Parents with such clarity don't have a ben Sayer Umayr. So that's what Rabbi Gedal Yeshur said. But at the end of the day, yes, it's a good question. Who's going to take their child? Why would a father damage his daughter and say she can't marry a kohen? That should be a right that it's true in economy. But that doesn't give him the namanis of an eight.
So this is just an intellectual exercise. There's no reality.
Oh, it's very real. If he said this, he wouldn't be believed.
Yeah, but who would say this? That's what I'm saying. No parent is going to say that.
You're saying that the likelihood of something like this happening is very low.
Yeah, and we take that into account when we pass in halachas.
There was a case not so long ago where there was a recalcitrant husband who was fighting with his wife about a get, and what he said was, "I accepted Kiddushin for our daughter who's a ketana, and I'm not telling you to who." So he virtually assered his daughter on everybody. So the poskim had to deal with that because now you have a little girl who's going to be in a guna because this he was very vindictive and he caused problems. So it's not the norm that someone would do that, but if he did, the Gemara has to deal with it. So I guess it's not it's a very.
But they don't deal with the cases that the lo shchiach ordinarily they don't. They
over the past couple of
How many times have we seen? How many times have we seen Gemaras dismissing issues that aren't,
But let me ask you a question. When was the last time you heard of a guy who married his daughter off and forgot who he married her off to? Doesn't he know who the check has to be payable to every month?
Okay, you make a good point. Okay.
There was a person who is dying, and he told his wife when he died, I have children. So therefore, you will not be zakah for Yibam. That's why he would make that declaration. He's trying to pater from Yibam. Neman, he's believed, even though there was no known children. But if he declares Yesh Libanim, he's Neman, and therefore there's no Yibam. Even if it's not a Yibam, it's depending on him having a child. Yesh Achim, what if he says, I have a brother? So they didn't have children, and she didn't know about any brother that he had. And he did Yesh Achim. Now he's causing his wife a problem because now she's Yibam. Neman, he would not be believed. Wait, if it wasn't so late, there's a beautiful story of Abtanuv over here. But we have to finish the daf first. Zog to Gemara, Alma Nemon Lahatir Ve'inem. You see clearly that the husband only has an amonus to be matir his wife by saying that there's children and therefore she's part of him Ibum, but he wouldn't be Nemon to make her be chayv in Ibum if otherwise it wouldn't be known because he's not believed to say he has brothers. Zog to Gemara, it seems like this mission is not consistent with Abnos and the Tanya. The Shas Kiddushin. What happens when he was marrying his wife? He wanted to tell his wife, you don't have to worry that if you marry me, you'll ever fall to my brother in Hebrew. Amar Yesh Leibonim. He said, I already have children. you'd think that it's a chesaron if he's marrying a woman to say he had children from another marriage, she won't want them. Here it's a Maila. You're safe. You'll never need to do Yibum. And then B'Shas Misa, then when he was dying, Amar Ein Lebanim. He said, I only told you that because I wanted you to marry me. So I wanted to show you that I'm a good guy, because I'm a good investment, because you won't be Zok Libim. But I lied. I really don't have children. Now that I'm dying, I need to tell you that, because you're going to be Zokok to Yibim.
Could it not be that the child, just for 1 second, could it not be that the child predeceased him? Doesn't the child have to be alive when he dies?
Yeah, but that's not the argument here. But what about B'Shas Kiddushin? Amar Ein Lo Achim. I don't have brothers, so you won't be Mechuyev in Yibum. And B'Shas Misa Amar Yesh Lo Achim. So you can ask the same question there. Maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe he was just saying that I had a brother that was born to me later, right? So at the end of the day, Neman Lahater, he only believed to say that his wife is not Mechuyev in Yibum. Vain lemon losser, but he wouldn't be neman to say something that would answer his wife and make her be mechuyev in yibum. They're very Rebbe, but Rab Nosson Eimer af neman lesser. So our Mishnah is not consistent with Rab Nosson, because our Mishnah says he's only neman to say yesh libanim, but not neman to say yesh liachim, which is tafka laheter v'lo laser. Amar Rav, no, there's no raya. Our Mishnah and the brisa that we quoted are actually not the same case. Shiny Hasam, Kivan de B'Shas Misa Kahadarbe, in Rav Nosson's case, he's contradicting himself. He first said, Yesh Libanim, and then he said, Ein Libanim. Since he's contradicting himself, Ema Kushtak Amar. That's a bigger raya that he says the truth. This, you have to have a very lumdish logic to understand that. Zogt Rashi, how do you get it? That since he's contradicting himself, that's the reason why we should believe him. Zokt Rashi, shiny house on Bebraisa, even the Hadr Beimi Dibura Kaba, B'Shas Misa, since when he's dying, he's on his deathbed, he's correcting what he said earlier, it must be Kushta Ka'amar, Shalo Yehav and Taliban. He wanted her to marry him, so he lied and said that he has children. But now that he's about to die, he doesn't want Chas v'Shalom, his wife should marry Lashuk and do a horrible affair if she's really Zokak Yibam. So therefore he's correcting it. Avo Masnizin, in our Mishnah's case, he never told her anything when they got married. So therefore, Ki Amar Hashta, Yeshli, now out of the blue, he says, right before he dies, that I have brothers, Ein Eman, because maybe even though he's dying, he wants to get her one last time. So if he's actually correcting himself, that would indicate more that maybe he's saying the truth. The Gemara rejects that svara right away. Come on, that doesn't make sense. In this brisa, where Reb Nosson is arguing, where he's contradicting himself, you still trust him. In the Mishnah, where he's not contradicting himself, surely we should say that he's trying to help stop her from being over an avera. I'm going to tell you the reason. Our Mishnah is speaking where he didn't have any known brothers. If you would have asked anybody, didn't have Edom or anything, but if you would have asked anyone around, does Yankel have brothers? They'll say, no, I don't think Yankel has brothers. I think Yankel's an only child. So he didn't have brothers, and we didn't know that he had sons either. Damrinon, we say, since her status, the status quo is that we assume he has no children and he has no brothers, which means there is no Chiyuv Yibum. Omar, if right before he dies, as in our Mishnah's case, he said Yesh Libanim, Neman, he'll be believed because it's not changing the status quo. She was not Mechuyev in Yibum up until now, and by him saying Yesh Libanim, it doesn't change the status quo. She's still not Mechuyev in Yibum. But if he said Yesh Liachem, which changes the status quo, and now he's saying that she would be Mechuyev in Yibum, Eine Neman, you know why? Because Lav Kol Kiminei, the Osala Akula Am. He has no power to take a woman who basically had a chazaka that she wouldn't be mechuyev in yibum and now create a chiyuv. He doesn't have such an amonis to do that. But brisa, the brisa where Reb Nosson says he is believed to answer her, that's speaking the muchzak lon ba'achi. We knew, it was known that he had brothers, and Rashi makes it very clear. Not that there was Edom. It was known. If we ask people, I I know he has a brother. But not that there's two Edom who could stand there and say testimony there was a brother. It's just, that's what everyone assumed. So right now she's in a status her chazaka is that she's mechuyev in ibum. The Amrinon there will say, Mali l'shaker. Why would he lie? By breaking her status quo that she's mechuyev in ibum. Right? The status quo is that she's mechuyev in ibum because she has brothers and not a son. He has brothers and not a son. And now he's saying, either I don't have a brother, or now he's saying that I have a son. He's breaking her chazaka. We trust him to break her chazaka, to be mad to her. Why? Because my kamar, lemifter miyavim, is that what he's trying to do? He's trying to illegally make her part from Yibum, which is basically getting her to do an avera, because she's really mechuyev in Yibum, and he's trying to save her from Yibum. He could do it legally. Matzi Amar Patran Labagita. He can just give her a get. So if he really wants to save her from doing Yibum, let him just give her a get. Why make up this elaborate lie? So Rebbe Savar, Mali l'shaker ki edim dam. The proof of Mali l'shaker, if he wanted, he could have given her a get. That's such a strong proof that what he's saying is the truth. Therefore, it's like he has edim here testifying that he is saying the truth, that there's no brother here, or that there are children here, and therefore it patters. Vasu edim akri chazaka. That's what Rebbe holds. Rab Nazan Savar, Mali l'shaker is only as strong as the chazaka. So therefore, la'osi chazaka, the akra chazaka l'gamri. The chazaka that he has now, that he's saying the truth because he could have given a get, is not strong enough to undo the original chazaka where he said, in fact, that there was no chivyu. Gewaltig. So let's see Rashi, a beautiful Rashi. Rebbe Savar Mali l'shaker. The Shas Kiddushin, when at the time of the Kiddushin, ki ilu bo edim bedavar Mali l'shaker. The Shas Kiddushin ki ilu bo edim bedavar zeh. It's as if they were edim at that point. But aker leil chazaka, and there was oiker the chazaka tava machzakin le meikara. So when he came to marry her, the assumption was that there would be a chiv. So he's coming to marry a woman. It's understood. The item assumes that he has a brother and not a son. So therefore, he was in a status of a mechazakinale meikara ba'achi b'loibon. That was the assumption, that he had brothers. He didn't have children. So when he marries her, there would be a chiv. The kaim lahach itza b'cheskas she'ein kuka. Since he has no reason to lie, when he originally marries her and he tells her that I didn't have brothers and therefore there's no chiv yibum, he has a malay l'shaker. So therefore he's believed to break the chazak. So up until now, when he was about to marry her, we assume there'll be a chiv yibum. By him saying that I don't have a brother or I do have a son, we'll believe him to break that chazaka that he had. Because it's like Edim are testifying that what he's saying is the truth. And therefore, when he's coming back, b'shas misa, to take away that chazaka, lav kol kaminei, he cannot be believed because there's a malay l'shaker at the beginning. Rav Nosson Savar, that it's only a chazaka that gave him the original namonos to say that she's part of a mibel. And therefore, also chazaka the malay l'shaker, his original statement when he married her, does not have the status of Shnei Edim. It does have the status of a chazaka that will not be oiked the chazaka kamaisa, that will not totally obliterate the original chazaka that he had that was mechayiv the menib. Tavakoiba koidim kedushin lo ukma lahach becheska she'enis kuka lemisal dibure b'shasmis. So the question is the namonis that he had when he first married her, is that the namonis of Shnei Edim? And if it is, then nothing else could be mavatal it, and therefore she remains mutter, and therefore you can't answer, which was the svara of Rebbe. Rav Nosson said his original words, when he said, I don't have a brother, or when he said, I do have a son, it was believed because of a chazaka, but it wasn't mamish like Shnei Edim. So therefore, if he retracts that, when he dies, we're actually going to answer her to marry Lashuk, and we're going to say that she needs Yibum. So Rebbe Savar Mali l'shaker, his original statement when he married her, that she's potter from Kedush, that she's potter from Yibum, is ki Edim dam. That's the strength of Edim. And therefore, also Edim akri chazaka. Edim are oiker, her original chazaka, that she's mechuyev in Yibum, and that she's not mechuyev in Yibum. And you have two Edim saying she's not mechuyev in Yibum. So later on, right before he dies, if he wants to say again that she's mechuyev in Yibum, he's not believed. But Rab Nosson Savar Mali l'shaker ki chazaka dam. When we originally trusted him when he got married, to say that she was not going to be mechuyev in yibum, it had the strength of a chazaka, but not the strength of Adam. And therefore, there's still that original chazaka that's hovering there. And therefore, when he comes at the end of his chayzer, in fact, we have to be concerned about what he's saying, and she would be mechuyev in yibum.
What he's saying is that he never had what he said, not that they died.
Correct. I think about that. Zok the Gemara weiter. Zok the Heilige Mishnah weiter. We're up against the clock. From the Kaddish is Pitoi Stam. We learned this Gemara, so this is Mamash and Chazari. We learned this exact Gemara. Someone was Mekadesh, his daughter Stam, and he had older daughters, younger daughters. So we don't know which daughters are the possibility that he married off. So the look at any daughters that he has that are adults, he for sure could not have been Mekabel Kiddushin for them. So there might be a suffix, but all his remaining daughters, who he was Mekabel Kiddushin for, but boigers for sure are not a problem because he didn't have a right to be Mekabel Kiddushin for them. How about he married, he had two daughters, and then his wife, Rahman al was Nifter, he married another wife, and now he has another two daughters. So he has two sets of two daughters each. Omar, and the genius said, as Biti Agadoila, Kidashti is Biti Agadoila. I accepted Kiddushin for my older daughter. The Any idea, we don't know. What does that mean? Is it Gedoilish Begdoilish? Is it the oldest of the older bunch? Or Gedoilish Begdoilish? Or maybe it's the older one of the younger bunch. Or Ketanish Begdoilish. Even if it's the younger one of the older bunch, she could still be referred to as a Gedoilah. She's even older than the oldest one from the second batch. Kulan Asuris, all three girls, both girls from the first marriage, and the older girl from the second marriage, could all be the one that he was Makabel Kiddushin for, so they're Osir. The only daughter that he for sure didn't mean was Chutzim Naktana Shebektanis. The youngest of the lowest group, for sure he was Makabel Kiddushin for them, for her, Divri Abeir. Rabbi Yosy Amar Kulam Mataris, Chutzim Nakdolah Shebektanis. Because Rabbi Yossi Shita was, we learned it, that a person doesn't say things if it's not crystal clear. So if he said Gedolah, he only meant the oldest one, because otherwise he's putting himself into a sof. What about exactly the opposite case? Kidashes bizaktana. Then you do Ktana Shebektanis, or Ktana Shebekdoilas. Or Gedolah Shebektanis, Shektana Menaktana Shebekdoilas. Again, Kulam Nasurais, Chutzim Nakdolah Shebekdoilas to Vermeer. Rabbi Yossi Amar Kulam Mataris, Chutzim Naktana Shebektanis, because a person would not say anything that's unclear. Now, the Gemara is going to ask, why do we need the same case repeated twice? It's seemingly the same thing. The Gemara is going to make a trios. So, Dr. Gemara, Haktanois Bichlal. In the first case, where he said, I was Makabel Kiddushin for my daughter, and he had Boigreis and he had Ktanois, so the Mishnah says, Ein Boigreis Bichlal. The Boigreis are free and clear. He for sure wasn't Makabel Kiddushin for them. But if he had multiple Ktanois, they're all going to be Osir, because they might all be Sotach Mugudeshes. The problem is, if when he was Makabel Kiddushin for them, it wasn't defined who is the one who's getting married, that means the husband could never have bia with any one of the wives, because it might be his wife, but it might be his wife's sister, right? So it's Kiddushin Shem Yisrael Bia. Yet the Bishop says that they're in the suffix. So Shmas Mina, Kiddushin Shem Yisrael Bia, have a Kiddushin? Are you going to bring a raya from here from the fact that all the Tanois are Safek Mekudeshes? It must be that even though it was a Kiddushin Shem Yisrael Labia, because it was never defined who she was married to, it's going to be a good Kiddushin. So no. He only had one child that was an adult, and he had one child that was Oktana. So there's no Safek who it was. It must be the younger daughter. Freit the Gemara, it says V'haboigreis katan. Boigreis is plural. So if there were multiple boigreis, there were probably also multiple Ktanos. So your teretz doesn't work out. So Gemara, no, my boigreis to Alma. It doesn't mean that he had multiple boigreis. It means in any situation like this, the boigreis wouldn't be in the suffix. Freit Gemara, if that's the case, that we're talking, the Mishnah is talking about a case where we had one adult daughter and one Ketana daughter. So what's the Chiddush? Pshita, boigreis ma'avid. He can't be Mekadesh, his daughter who's a boigreis. So if he has one adult daughter and one Ketana daughter, and he says as Makabel Kiddushin, it's Pashut, he was Makabel Kiddushin for the younger one. Why does the Mishnah need to tell us this? His older daughter made him a shliach to accept the Kiddushin for her. So now he has a right to marry off his older daughter because he's a shliach, but he also has a right to marry off his Ketana because he's entitled to that. So the question is, if he was Makabel Kiddushin, who would he have been Makabel Kiddushin for his older daughter or for his younger daughter? You might say the older daughter, because Loyasa came in Kamenu, right? He would want to marry off his older daughter first, but that's not halacha. Now the Makabel Kedushi Adaita Didaka Makabel. You might think that he's being Makabel Kedushin for his older daughter first. If he has an opportunity to get paid, get the most Kedushin from his younger daughter, or be Makabel Kedushin for his adult daughter, where she gets the money, he would for sure rather marry off his younger daughter, where he'll get the money.
I would rather.
That's what he was a Galatiana Svara. Frank Gemara Mila Askina the Amrlei Kedushi Alach. The Mishnah said very broadly that it's always the Ketana who he was Mekadosh. So maybe it's even the case where she would have let him, the Boigris who gave him a shlichus, also would have let him keep the money. Zokt the Gemara, Afilo Achi Leisavik Inish Mitzvah de Rami Alei, Vavid Mitzvah de Rami Alei. He has a chiv to marry off his daughter's a Ketana. An adult daughter, he doesn't have a chiv to marry her off. So he's for sure going to focus first on fulfilling his personal responsibility to marry off his younger daughter, and therefore will assume that he was Makabel Kedushin for her first. Okay, we're gonna have to stop here because I'm up against the clock, even though it's a Shema Gemara, but we'll have to stop here. What? I came late in.